Hi there, everyone. I'm Dan Jones. Welcome to interCHANGE. Thank you so very much for joining us. We're going to talk about the nightmare that the Toyota Motor Company has created for itself and whether this helps American automakers like General Motors and Chrysler get back in the game. We'll talk about whether the United States military should change its policy and let known homosexuals into the armed forces. We will wonder out loud whether Tommy Thompson should run against Russ Feingold, and if he does, would he win? And of course, we'll talk about the Super Bowl for a few minutes. All right, joining us tonight, our job creation expert and consultant, Gerard Randall. Newspaper columnist and Milwaukee's favorite liberal, Joel McNally. And Kevin Fischer, aide to Republican State Senator Mary Lozick, and oftentimes a host over at WISN Radio. Rick Horowitz will be along with commentary at the end of the show. All right, the first thing we'll talk about is the seemingly snowballing problems for Toyota. First, it was their floor mats, which could catch the accelerator pedal. Then it was the accelerator pedal itself, which could stick. Now it's a problem with the brakes. It seems like almost overnight, one of the most admired and trusted names in the history of auto manufacturing is damaged beyond repair. Do they have anyone, Gerard, to blame but themselves?
Well, it would be a simple enough problem to fix if it were just a public relations issue that Toyota had to address. But it's not that simple. They have a long and respected history of producing high-quality cars, and they're about to flush that down the toilet because they have a culture that says you react to these things rather slowly and not with the kind of speed that the Americans would expect, given the kind of loyalty they've given to their cars, out of respect for the quality that they produce. I'm a little interested in how the Secretary of Transportation got involved in this whole thing and whether he actually pressured them or whether Toyota's response was something that they were planning to do, would have done anyhow, perhaps just a few weeks later. Without the kind of prodding that now Ray LaHood claims that he had to give in order to get them to do what they're doing. If that is, in fact, the real story, that they had to be really prompted in order to make the kind of response that they needed to make in order to fix these cars and regenerate confidence in their automobiles that Americans have come to expect of their product, then I don't think this is something that's going to be easily fixed, and it's certainly not something that's going to turn around overnight in terms of their auto sales when you've got the other automakers, American automakers, that are chomping at the bit to win their customers.
Kevin, there's kind of a conspiracy theory floating out there now, too, that because the government owns most of GM and owns most of Chrysler, it's in the government's best interest if Toyota goes down.
Well, that may be, but that's silly. I don't think politics enters into this. The only people Toyota have to blame for what's happened to this legendary company in the automobile industry is themselves. And this was building up. This didn't just happen over time. Last year, they had more recalls than any other automobile manufacturer on the planet. And it continued now with this most recent recall, and it will take time for them to win favor again. Can they do it? Yes, but it's going to take time. They need to do a few things. They need to do damage control immediately because they have congressional hearings coming up on this very issue next week. They need to come clean and be honest and admit their faults and their problems. They need to fix those problems immediately and not take time, because we're talking about machines of death now, that people could die in these automobiles. And then they need to, in the consumer world that we live in, go out and build a better mousetrap, build a better car, and convince the global consumers that it's safe. And you asked in your open, can American manufacturers capitalize on this? They already have. Last month, Toyota sales were down 16%, while General Motors and Ford saw an increase in their sales. So if I were the American manufacturers, I would go out and do a mass marketing campaign, even though hardly anybody is buying automobiles these days, and try to convince the American people that, see, we do build better cars in America. We do build safer cars, and try to build on this. But they have to do damage control. If you remember way back, I think it was 1982 in Chicago, 7 people died from taking Tylenol that was laced with cyanide. No one is afraid to go out and buy Tylenol today. It's the largest selling painkiller in the United States. So you can bounce back, but it's going to take time, and it all depends on how you sell it to the American people.
This is a brilliant company. They came into America and they really did kick butt. With every car from the Corolla to the top-end Lexus, it makes you think they will bounce back.
Yeah, actually, I think they've got a little more leeway than has been suggested here so far. I think they do look foolish and stumbling in these couple weeks that they didn't immediately get on it. But you know, the truth is, you know, now with the chairman coming out and in Japan, an apology from a corporate chairman is like a
I'm sorry.
It's a national event, you know.
But that's not good enough. Wouldn't you agree? But that's not good enough.
But they have some leeway, just like we were talking last week about Macs and people who look to Mac for quality, look to Apple for quality. I think people look to Toyota for quality. And the fact of the matter is, those American manufacturers you're talking about, they are trying to become known as well for quality as Toyota is already.
They use the same business model as Toyota does.
But and you know, I just heard something today which kind of surprised me, that even, you know, with the floor mat and the gas pedal and now maybe even a brake problem, they say that's only the 5th largest recall in car history, and that the other 4 were 2 for Ford and 2 more for General Motors. And the Ford one is still going on. It's been going on for 2 or 3 years because they have something in their cruise control which is causing their cars to catch on fire.
Well, you're right. It helps if your competition also is stumbling around in the dark.
And I think, you know, I think because of their reputation, they have a little more leeway, but obviously they're going to have to go out aggressively, take care of the problem, take care of their customers. Their customers have a high opinion of them. I haven't heard a lot of feedback from people who say, you know, I'm never going to buy a Toyota again. Because usually when people start buying Toyotas, that's all they buy the rest of their lives. Right. And I think that they have a good chance now that they're getting on top of it. I don't know why it took them so long to get on top of it.
I think
that was stupid.
I think the reason is,
and I think they're going to aggressively.
I think the reason is, as you alluded to, it's just that the Japanese business culture is not one of these, as far as
responsive to this kind of pressure.
They are not very aggressive and quick on the trigger.
But when you're talking about maybe the American companies can take advantage of this, it was just about a year ago that people were saying, let the American companies go out of business. Let the entire car industry go out of business. You know, thank God for Barack Obama.
Oh, you had to politicize it now.
The American car companies saving all those jobs, and now we have a chance possibly to actually act on this and improve employment in the automobile industry.
You had to do it. You had to play the Democratic card.
All right, next topic. President Obama's military bosses said this week that it's time to do away with the ban on letting open homosexuals in the military. For years, the policy has been pretty much, we won't ask you about it, you don't tell us about it, everybody will just pretend that we don't know about it, and let's go on with life. The bottom line is it doesn't matter at all if the guy in the foxhole or the shower stall next to you, Kevin, is gay.
No, it does not. But at the same time, we've got a policy, somewhat controversial, but there haven't been major problems with it. Why mess with it? And you're talking about the military now, where they have certain codes of behavior that are not like the same codes of behavior in civilian life. For example, as silly as it sounds, adulterers are not allowed. If they find out, you know, that's not smiled upon in the military. The job is so critical and so dangerous and so risky and so important, national security, that you shouldn't allow matters like this to come in and be a distraction. I think there should be as few distractions, sexual or otherwise, to allow military men and women to perform their jobs. And because of that, I say there should be, that we should plot along and keep this process, this policy in place, No, it doesn't matter if you're homosexual or not in the military. It depends on what kind of individual you are and whether you're militarily ready or not and equipped to do the job. However, I think you need to diminish as many distractions as you can to allow those military people to perform their functions. And one of those distractions is sexual.
So it should be okay then for open homosexuals to fill any role in the military?
Well, I think what you have are homosexuals that are filling those roles anyhow. It's just that right now they can't display in an open manner their sexual orientation. And I think that the president didn't doing away with this policy any great service by bringing it up at a time when he had other stuff that's on his plate. If he was sincere about doing away with it, I think part of it would have been to bring it up when he actually had some political currency to spend. He'd focused a lot of his political currency on the health care initiative. Now he's on jobs. He's let military leaders run with doing away with the policy. He's gotten some people like Colin Powell to be supportive in saying this is a policy that should be done away with. But the flip of that is he's got members of Congress who now see red meat being thrown at them, and they're saying, no, this has to come before Congress, and we're not going to support it. So why would he create his own distraction, his own political distraction, by trying to do away with the policy now? His military leaders admit there's no way that they're going to be able to do away with it within the next year or even the next 3 years. It's something that they are going to go back and do some studies on to see how they can, I guess, assess whether or not the policy, if they do away with it, is going to create more problems for them. And I actually think if they tried to do away with it, let's say today, it would create more headaches for them than it would solve. The other piece to this is that if you tried to do it by presidential order, which I suppose he could make a threat to do, then he goes into loggerheads with Congress all over again. And
which you can't afford to do right now.
Which he can't afford to do.
But isn't it true that this has been talked about and discussed for years and years and years and years? And
15.
For whatever reason, the decision has been made that open homosexuality and the military does not mix.
It's not for whatever reason. It's for a very simple reason, bigotry. That's all it is. And when you say Congress, talk about who you're talking about. You're talking about Republicans in Congress.
No, it's not.
It was certainly true of that
John
hearing
McCain
the other day.
was the one Republican that has gotten national headlines on it, but he's not the only one.
You had the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the Secretary of Defense, standing up and saying this is indefensible. You're not allowed to discriminate in any other occupation in the United States of America, but you can in the military.
Kind of being loyal to their boss, though.
What do you mean being loyal to their boss? I mean, they were both appointed by Republicans.
Chances are,
the truth of the matter is,
they probably have voted Republican more times than not.
They believe that, and every decent American believes that. I think from what you three just said, you believe that homosexuals should be allowed to serve in the military, but you're making excuses to continue bigotry, to continue, make people deny who they are. Kevin sat over there and said this hasn't been a problem.
It hasn't.
The thousands of people who've been thrown out of the military it's been learned that they're homosexual is not a problem.
Has it made our military inferior?
We're not talking about the military. I'm talking about the human beings who were thrown out of their jobs. They enlisted to serve. That's their career. That's their choice of an occupation. Homosexuals have served in the military throughout our history, but when it's learned that they're homosexual, they're thrown out of their employment. You can't do that in any other workplace. You can't do that in any other job in America. It's an embarrassment,
because
and it's truly an embarrassment to have the Republicans in Congress attack the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the Secretary of Defense, simply for saying let's end discrimination.
This was a
both parties should support the end of discrimination.
If they were to put it to a vote, would it pass in a democratically controlled Congress?
Absolutely.
No, it wouldn't. No, it wouldn't. Otherwise, the president would have done it.
The other day.
Otherwise, he would have done it.
You had the Democrats saying end discrimination. You had the Republicans making excuses to continue bigotry.
It's not the Republicans that are the only ones that are against the policy.
This is the Republicans on this panel.
All right, next topic. I love all this talk about the possibility of Tommy Thompson taking on Russ Feingold for the Senate seat. Will he get in, or is it all just ego-based bluster? And if he gets in, could he beat Russ Feingold, or are his days over?
No. I think he could beat Russ Feingold.
Kevin?
Yeah, no, he won't get in, or no, he wouldn't beat Russ Feingold?
No, I don't think he's going to get in.
I agree with you.
I don't see the advantage for him to get into the race other than to say he wants to serve his party one more time, because it's the party insiders that are encouraging him to head up the statewide ticket in this bid. He could raise the money. He could raise it from across the country. He would certainly out-campaign Feingold. I really believe that in terms of retail politics. But I think his problem clearly is going to be the record. Feingold's record is not one that I think he would be able to proudly say most Wisconsinites have bought into. And Thompson's record is going to create some headaches for him too, because you've got those within the party that say he's not conservative enough. You've got some within the party that would challenge his record on reducing costs or spending. And then likewise with Feingold, they would say, well, what record have you burnished that outside of campaign finance reform, which just got struck down by the Supreme Court, U.S. Supreme Court, what accomplishments can you speak to after 18 years in the Senate? So, yeah, I think it would be more than a heads-up race. I think Thompson would win it. I've seen him move about the state, and people still show a lot of admiration and love for him.
And have asked him to run.
And have asked him to run, but I don't think he's interested in doing it.
I don't think Feingold is as vulnerable as people are making him out to be. I think the only Republican that could beat Feingold would be Ryan, and Ryan's not going to run.
Right, no. And we've talked about that on this program. If I had my druthers, I would love Tommy Thompson to get into the race, because that would be fascinating. It would be beyond interesting. And nobody out-campaigns or out-hustles Tommy Thompson. He's the most popular governor, and maybe arguably the most effective governor in the state of Wisconsin's history. He would raise money. And I think in polls right now that are being taken, he beats Feingold, and Feingold is vulnerable. Massachusetts proved that everybody is vulnerable. There's no one safe. What Russ Feingold has going for him right now is that there isn't, in my opinion, any viable Republican candidate out there to oppose him. One of the guys running is having trouble because he didn't pay his income tax, and he's running as a fiscal conservative. Now, I'm sorry, but that doesn't cut it. And Feingold, he's appearing at these town halls the last couple months, and people are screaming for his hide. They don't like the guy. They don't like what he's been doing. So he is vulnerable. He's vulnerable because he has bought into that big tax and spending mentality in Washington. He's a big friend of Obama's, and Obama's numbers are down. And as you stated, what have you done for me lately? Campaign finance reform? That was a big blunder. And he paints himself as this maverick, but when you boil it down and look at his votes, he's just another big tax and spend Washington liberal. And as a Republican, I'm saying, wow, we could beat this guy. Mark Newman almost beat him a couple of years ago.
Right.
But there's, at this moment, no one viable on the Republican side to oppose him unless a big name would step forward, like a Tommy Thompson or a Paul Ryan, and I don't think they're going to do it.
And if Newman switched races and ran, I don't think he'd beat Feingold either.
You just say things on this program that aren't true.
What did I say that wasn't true?
A tax and spend liberal, Russ Feingold? He's the most conservative fiscal Democrat in the United States Senate.
Well, if that's conservative, my God, help us.
Yeah, I mean, he really is. It is recognized that while he's liberal on social issues, he's extremely conservative on budget and finance issues. And for you to sit here
and voted for tax increases his whole career.
For you to sit here and just make up things, that's not the idea of this show. Let me tell you why Tommy Thompson will not beat Russ Feingold. he has no interest in running for the United States Senate.
How do you know that?
He does not want to
How do
be
you know
one.
that? You say I
Listen
make
to
up
me,
stuff.
would you?
Have you talked
Listen
to
to me,
him?
would
Have
you?
you interviewed
And you
him?
might learn something.
Yeah, have you
If
talked
you
to him?
wouldn't talk while I'm talking, you would learn a lot more.
Well, don't say that I make up stuff when you do the
Tommy
same
Thompson
thing.
does not want to be one of 100 United States senators. He's never in his life wanted to be one of 100 United States senators. There were times in the past when people tried to talk him into running for Senate. He wants to run something. He wants to run either the state of Wisconsin or the United States of America. That's why he ran for president. That's why he ran for governor repeatedly. I think he could be talked into running for governor again, and I think he has a very good chance of winning if he runs for governor, because you have two Milwaukee candidates in the Republican side and the Democratic side. That is the wide open path for him if he wants to get back into public office. And believe me,
No disagreement on that.
listen to me more.
Russ Feingold, as a fiscal conservative,
painful,
though,
Joel.
when he supported universal health care, particularly this bill, that threw fiscal conservatism.
No, as a matter of fact, he supported the public option, so it would cut health care costs even more.
The cost of that,
You're making stuff up. You're making stuff up.
not that.
We know who does that.
No.
All right, let's shift gear, talk about sports. The Super Bowl would be a lot more interesting if the Packers were in it or the Vikings were in it. But having said that, who's the winner, the Saints or the Colts, and why?
Saints.
Why?
I think the Saints offensively, if they can keep their focus, Drew Brees is going to have enough horses to make this a real offensive shootout if they don't get intimidated by the fact that the Colts have already been there to the Super Bowl. And they've got veterans on their team that have been there that can show that kind of leadership to get them through. And the other, all they need is a little bit of defense. And if they can upset by continuing to pressure the Colts offensively, pressure their offense, I think they'll come out of this with a win.
I think America's favorite is probably New Orleans. They're pulling for New Orleans.
Well, we're being told by by everybody that has access to a microphone that New Orleans is the anointed team because of Hurricane Katrina, and quite frankly, I'm sick of hearing that. I think the Indianapolis Colts are going to win because they are the best team in football and they have the best quarterback and the best player in football. The New Orleans Saints aren't even the best team in the National Football Conference. I think the Minnesota Vikings should have won that game a couple of weeks ago, deserved to win that game because they were the better team, but they lost not because of Brett Favre's interception.
They lost because they pressured the quarterback. They pressured the running back.
They lost because they lost the coin toss, and New Orleans got the ball first, which is an absurd rule. But no, that's not to say New Orleans Saints is not a good. They're not a good football team, but Indianapolis. I mean, Peyton Manning is just almost unstoppable, and they do have a good defense that they don't get credit for.
30 seconds. Do the Colts do it again?
I think so, but I think everybody is going to be pulling for the Saints as the underdog. Underdogs are always appealing. I don't know why you're so against underdogs, but yeah, the Indianapolis Colts.
I didn't say that.
I think it's a great matchup. I would have loved to also see the Vikings Indianapolis matchup.
Think of the stories there.
The old guy and the guy who might break some of his records. So yeah.
All right. After months of anticipation, there are two sides squaring off, face to face, with the cameras rolling and the media chewing over every single bit of strategy. I'm talking, of course, about last Friday's historic question and answer session between President Obama and Republican members of the House of Representatives. Most of the post-game analysis gave the nod to Obama, which only has the Republicans hungry for another crack at him. Rick Horowitz knows just what they're thinking. Rick.
Yeah. No, I say we do it again. Invite him back and do it again. Only this time we'll be better prepared. We'll know what we're up against. Yeah. No, it wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad at all. We went toe-to-toe with the President of the United States. How often does that happen? Yeah, plus plenty of good footage of our guys sticking it to it. Yeah. No, I saw the letter. No, it looks good. When does it go out? Yeah, great. Yeah, we'll raise some money off it anyway. How's that? No, a win is whatever we say is a win. And we won. End of story. Yeah, and next time even bigger because we'll be ready. And because we're ready for him. Yeah. Sure he will. Sure he will. A rematch is the only fair thing to do. If he refuses to give us a rematch, then he's a quitter. Yeah. And a coward. Yeah, we can use both. Look, the main thing is He had to admit we have ideas. None of that Pelosi Reed crap about how we're a party and no ideas and everything. Me too. It drives me up a wall. Did you see when Boehner gave him the ideas booklet? Wasn't that great? It's like he didn't even know what to do with it. Yeah, but it proved we had ideas. That was the whole point, okay? So they get to drop all this nonsense about... Sure he did. Sure he had answers for everything, but next time we give him some ideas he hasn't read. Get the jump on him. Right, back on his heels. Yeah, but see, that's because he'd read them first, even before John gave him the... He bet it's like cheating. Yeah, we ought to call him out on it. Right, look, if he's going to read all our ideas ahead of time, and he already knows his ideas, of course he's going to have an advantage. Right, but that doesn't mean we didn't win too. I mean, they all sounded like he was the only one who won. No, of course not Fox. No, I meant everybody else. What do you expect? They love the guy. They just said, exactly. Look. We did fine. We did just fine, and next time we'll do even better. You bet. Next time we'll really nail him. He will give us a next time, don't you think? Absolutely, yeah, of course. Yeah, he'll do it. Yeah, we'll do fine. He'd better give it if he knows what he's talking about, knows it's good for him. Absolutely. Yeah, no trouble at all. Sure.
Thanks, Rick, and thank you so much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Oh, when the saints go marching in, oh, when the saints go